So, welcome back to Amtgard 201. My name is Coltrane Lionheart. I'm from the Kingdom of the Rising Winds, the Duchy of Madoc's Keep in Louisville, Kentucky. And today, we will be talking about tournaments. So, I like to break down tournaments into two phases, pre-tournament and during the tournament. So, let's go ahead and start to talk about the pre-tournament things to think about first. So, pre-tournament things that we need to think about are preparing our body and our mind for the actual tournament. So let's talk about the body first. So tournaments, unlike most sports where you play about an hour or so, you're out on the field. Tournament days in Amtgard can be pretty long, depending on your park and how you organize it, 3-4 hours and stuff like that. So we really got to prepare our bodies beforehand. I personally like to carbo load the day before, and then the day of, have a pretty big breakfast, mostly carbohydrates, and that's going to really get me prepared and fuel for the rest of the day. The last thing that we want is to start having cramps or start underperforming because we're tired or hungry for the game. And speaking of that, it's not just, with nutrition. We want to take in a lot of water the day before and a good amount of water beforehand also. That should prepare our body for the tournament, so we're not really hindering ourselves. We want to perform at our top performance. Okay, so tournament day is here now, and let's talk about things we want to do before we head out to that tournament. One, we want to check the weather. So checking the weather is always important because you need to see what kind of garb you need to bring for that day. So for example, if it's a hot day, you want to bring, of course, your best your best garb, a lot of airflow, that kind of stuff like that. Cold day, of course, bring your cold stuff. Also, we want to check the weather for, like, say, if it's raining, is your location going to be muddy? That's going to kind of dictate, do we need to bring cleats? Do we need to bring boots? That kind of stuff like that. The last thing you want to do is to show up to that tournament. You're already fueled up, you're ready to go, you're pumped up, and you have to bring cleats, and it's a muddy day, and I wipe out of the Ironman because I'm constantly slipping, right? So we want to look at that. And speaking of that situation, talking about garb, we don't want to bring any type of really big garb, right? I don't want to bring giant wrap pants that's going to make it seem a little questionable if this shot actually hit me or not. Stuff like that. So let's think about the type of garb that we're bringing for that day. The next thing I want to talk about is scouting. So what is scouting? Scouting is looking at the opponents that we have for that day, and if we know them, not know them, kind of adjusting our game plan for who we're fighting against. So, like in any sport and everything, we don't want to underestimate anybody. If there's new people out there, warlords, whatever, we never want to underestimate any opponent that we have. So we want to prepare ourselves mentally for the types of opponents that we have and how we can adjust to them. So what I mean by scouting is, a lot of times people will like to get a couple of fights in beforehand, right? So we want to look at who do we have at the tournament that day, and we want to get in a couple of fights with some people that you may not have fought against before, see how they fight, and then we want to try to mentally prepare ourselves to adjust to how they want to fight, right? So what I mean by that is, you may run into a new person, hey, introduce yourself, be nice, all that kind of stuff like that. And you may want to adjust. Okay, this person is very defensive. How can I beat them, especially in the tournament once adrenaline and everything else starts pumping, right? Or, oh, this person here is a very aggressive fighter. I need to remember that and keep that in mind when I have to fight that person later. So there's a lot of that kind of going on here. So you might want to look around, scout out who you have, and think about how you can adjust and prepare yourself mentally for who and what you're fighting against. Okay, so we're at the point now where the tournament has started, right? You're waiting in line for that Ironman tournament to get up to the front and stuff like that. What do we want to do? What I like to do is I like to keep moving, right? Since I've already got myself stretched, warmed up, got a couple of fights in beforehand, I want to stay warm, right? So maybe I keep a little bit of water on me, keep myself hydrated, but I want to keep that movement, keep that bouncing going on. So I'm not going into that fight completely cold, right? So while I'm in line, I kind of keep moving, keep myself mentally prepared and everything. And then once I go into it, I have the higher chance of success, right? So we finally went through the line, we've got to the front. Let's talk about some mind games let's talk about some mind games that we could play while in the tournament, right? So now we're in the bracket portion of things, and let's talk about why that scouting was so important earlier. So in the bracket, of course, it's a little more stressful, and this is also why we had ourselves mentally set up beforehand. But in the bracket portion, because it is so one-on-one, we may have lost our momentum that we had in that Ironman portion of things. And this is where it's so important that we understood that opponents that we're playing against, we hopefully have had to fight them a few times in the Ironman portion, and hopefully we've got ourselves a good idea in scouting on how that person fights. So during the bracket portion, we have a lot of downtime. Just also take that time in between the fights and really get yourself mentally and physically prepared for that next round, right? Because the bracket portion of it, be it single limb, double limb, stuff like that, it can be pretty stressful on you. But I think that's pretty much everything we have today about the tournaments and preparing yourself and kind of getting you through it. So if you like this video, go ahead and please hit the like and subscribe button. And if you want more videos like this, you can always contact me. I got my information below. And as always, swords up, lay on.